I'd like to thank everyone for coming for this particular session. My name is Memory Ngui from Industrial Psychology Consultants. We are doing these sessions. We've done quite a number now. I think this is the 12th session that we've done so far with different speakers across the globe to look at topical issues. We've taken advantage of the lockdown to be able to educate HR people, learn from each other, share ideas on a variety of topics. We also encourage you as HR practitioners to suggest topics and speakers that you may want us to bring on this particular platform. We envisage that this will run until the end of the year where we will be having this. At the present moment, most of them are unpaid, but where we are not charging anyone, but I'm sure as we go, these are the people that we are bringing on board are really specialists. We'll work on some form of training program. These are just sessions. We will work on some form of training programs using some of the speakers that are here on this platform today and others from across the globe. Those will be paid, but for these ones where we are sharing ideas, we don't expect you to pay, but we will organize more exciting events as we go through this particular program. So I'd like to welcome all the participants and especially the speakers. Sam Gumisi, welcome to the program.
My pleasure.
Okay, thank you very much, Sam. Isaac, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Memory.
Audrey Mlambo, welcome to the program.
Thank you, and hi, everyone.
Thank you. So, thank you, guys. So, I will start with Audrey. If you can give us your overview. So, after each overview, we don't open it up for questions. We'll open up for questions later on. So each presenter will give the overview. When they're done, we move to the next one. Once you've done your overviews, we can then start to open up for questions. I'll probably ask you a few questions myself first. Then in the question and answer session, any panelist can respond. We will then also open up for participants to join and ask questions to our presenters. So over to you, Audrey.
Okay, thank you so much, Memory, and thank you everyone for the opportunity that you've given me to speak to you. So we find ourselves in a very unfortunate situation, which is redefining how we work and play. I say unfortunate in the sense that it's got a negative impact in terms of our health. There is that health threat of infection. And also at the same time, because it's not a voluntary situation that we find ourselves in. We haven't planned this new way of working. So in that regard, it's unfortunate. However, whilst I say that, it's also fast-tracking us in terms of implementing some of the trends of new ways of doing business, and where HR or human capital practitioners can become key players in influencing how we respond as a business and come out successfully out of this COVID-19 crisis that we find ourselves in. I appreciate organizations are at different levels in terms of adaptability to the new ways of working. So you'd find some international organizations already had the working from home policies, already had infrastructure set up to be able to help people cope and respond to this situation we find ourselves in. So in terms of how we can actually support the business, the support levels is dependent on the context. But I'll just give an overview in terms of the general approaches. So immediately, obviously, the occupational health and safety becomes key. So where HC practitioners are focusing mainly on making sure that our employees have got the adequate protective wear. So this is where we're talking about masks, we're talking about gloves, hand sanitizers, and also the fact that we need to make sure that employees or the work environment can support social distancing. So we find in most cases, working from home arrangements, even where businesses have now been said to go in and now start operating, the working from home arrangements have been put in place so that they manage that social distancing element of things. So you find from an occupational health and safety, you might have other business leaders, like for example, finance, focusing mainly on the dollar impact, the impact on the business, but as human capital practitioners, I think our main issue is the safety and health of our employees. The other immediate one is around helping manage fears. So creating platforms for counseling, platforms for communication that channels out credible information, which is because there's so many sources of information that we have out there with the social media, a lot of it being incorrect. You remember the early days when people were talking about this infection is not applicable to warm areas or hot areas, and it was proven not to be correct. So our immediate response and how to support the business is also to just make sure that we have platforms that can communicate, that can send out correct information around this crisis and how people can prevent contraction and all that. The other one is also immediate short-term policies or practices. So I mentioned the working from home element, where I was saying it's one of the things that is being put in place to manage social distancing. So from an HC point of view, is to also make sure that people are enabled to work from home. So if it's about short-term practices of giving people data so that they can operate from home, that's where we come in. Short-term policies. So you find like in markets like South Africa, students were or schools were immediately closed before people or our employees would have been prepared for children to come back. So it was acknowledged that in those circumstances, you might need to provide some special kind of leave for people to be able to adjust to what has just come through. So some of those immediate responses is what HC can help. Medium to long term, we're looking at then how do we help, particularly people managers, to manage productivity remotely? Because a real challenge that we find ourselves with is the proximity bias. Some of it, in some cases, is just about perception, but in some cases, about maybe a discipline and accountability amongst our subordinates. But it's how do we overcome that? How do we make sure that we transition the focus from output-based measures rather than input, which is mainly where you will need to see someone in the workplace. So all those, I think we've got various opportunities as HC to support. The other ones is just about upskilling on interactive tools. So some of us, in terms of being familiar with this Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Skype for Business, and whatever, in some instances, people were not well versed with this. So HC comes in from a learning point of view to help people to actually utilize some of this, and also just in the overall sense of change management. How do we just manage change and as we adapt and as we walk through this? But long term also is to look at how can we reimagine the future? I think it's something that we can't wait for a later time to start reimagining what the future will look like, because that way we can help our businesses be better prepared for what will be coming through. So here I'm talking about workplace setup. How do we have enough policies, if we didn't have, that would support the business in future? So here I'm talking about things to do with flexible working. If we didn't have policies like that, I think it's something that we need to start thinking about. And the way we even reward people, you'll find that in most cases you'd have benefits such as parking, fuel. Are they going to be as relevant going forward? I'm not saying they should be, in terms of the total cost to the company, they should be removed entirely, but just saying, is there a way we can restructure some of these things? Then also acknowledging that people have realized that they can handle multiple roles or multiple, they can do multiple jobs and can work for multiple entities if they've got the flexibility to work from home. So it's to just reimagine a scenario where maybe like the Western world, where an employee maybe can be allowed to enter into a contractual arrangement with different players. So how does that look like? What is the impact of such an arrangement across the market, and how can we prepare for that? My last two would be on organization design. I think with the realization that there's benefit and merit in automating some of our processes, which we've realized during this lockdown period. Most organizations looking at ways where we can leverage on technology, and that in itself will mean the change in terms of how an organization is structured. So that even speaks to the need for us to repurpose employees, to have employees that can be able to work with technology for the sustainability and profitability of an entity. So in a nutshell, I would say a lot of value can be added by HC, just from the communication and making sure that there's alignment from a strategic direction, there's cultural changes, there are policies that are appropriate and that can support our new ways of working. So maybe I could stop the memory in terms of an overview.
Thank you very much, Audrey. Maybe other people don't know, Audrey is with the Stanbic HC. So thank you very much for all the ideas that you have shared. We'll let people digest that as we bring in the next speaker. At the end, we'll then have question and answer session. I also have my questions for your section, but we'll leave that to the end. Isaac, you can give us your overview.
Thank you, Memory, and thank you, participants. There's a lot to talk about, really, but I'll try to make it as short as I can. Mm-hmm. As background to this, I think I should start by saying COVID-19, where we are, provides what I can call a watershed moment, where we have, on the one side, the old normal, our old way of doing things that we're used to, and the new normal, or the next normal. So we are on a watershed. We know where we have come from, but we don't know where we are going. But one thing for sure really is that the aftermath of COVID-19 is going to be a changed landscape. It's not going to be business as usual post-COVID-19, where people used to sleep at the office. It's now going to be replaced by remote working. In that context, HR has a big role to play in terms of assisting the business to come to terms and also to be proactive in dealing with COVID-19. I will look at 5 or 6 interventions that the HR practitioner can get involved in. The first one I will look at is the issue of protecting our employees. I mentioned our practitioner will say our employees. Protect our employees is a priority under COVID-19, and there is a legal obligation to that. There's a legal obligation to ensure health and safety of employees. That is where NASA comes in. I think I've seen NASA has segmented guidelines on how to handle COVID-19. Those are, most of them are mandatory.
Isaac? There's a network challenge there. Sam, can you chip in while it's Isaac? Hello? Isaac, get on. Isaac, get on.
Yes. It says no employer shall require any employee to work under any conditions or situations which are below those prescribed by law or by conventional practice of the occupation for the protection of such employees' health or safety. So there is a legal obligation there. And not only that, when you go to Section 104 of the Labor Act, which deals with the issue of collective job action, you appreciate that it is very difficult to have a legal or a lawful collective job action in this country. There are so many requirements that you have to satisfy before you can be allowed to engage on a lawful industrial action. But there are two instances where employees can just go on industrial action without going through all those requirements. And one of them is when there is an immediate threat to their health and safety. So if employees perceive that there is a threat to their health and safety at the workplace in terms of COVID-19, they are allowed without notice to withdraw their labor in terms of Section 104, subsection 4A of the Labor Act. So those are legal obligations for employers which should be driven by HR. But there is also a moral duty to protect employees as well, because the illness and suffering that can be caused by contracting COVID-19 in the workplace is also to be taken into account by the employer. So that's the first intervention that HR can have. The second one is to look at it from a broader perspective, because the organization is a corporate citizen, and it is the duty of the HR person to actually drive that reality home. And when I'm talking about that, when I'm looking at things broadly, I'm talking about the national effort in the fight against COVID-19, the so-called, flattening of the curve. So everyone must take responsibility, including organizations. I think we've seen a number of organizations coming in with interventions of one sort or the other. I would say it's in the public domain that ECNET as a company has done so much and continues to do a lot in terms of, corporate philanthropy, in the wake of COVID-19. We've just seen, for example, that I was inspired by an organization called the Sky Lake Board, really. That organization that donated 2 balls to Wilkins Hospital as a corporate social responsibility. The owner of that company, the founder of that company, is a 25-year-old gentleman. He actually formed that company when he was 22. So he's a young guy, but he's socially responsible. His organization is out there helping to flatten the curve. So it's a challenge to us HR practitioner to actually find, how our organizations can also come in and do something about COVID-19. The sort of intervention will be the issue of teleworking or remote working. I think Audrey has touched on it, but what is important is that, like I indicated before, things are going to be different. Life is no longer going to be the same after the COVID-19. There's going to be some people that will be working from home. And that then comes with the issue of investment in digital infrastructure. There is a need to invest in digital hardware, digital software to make remote working possible. Because it's a reality. We know that not everyone is going to be able to work at home. It's not practical. But a number of people are going to be working from home, and there is need to invest a lot in that area. Then there is also the issue of communication. What is happening now is that there is a lot of information that is going around that our employees have access to. There's a lot of it, and perhaps it's not even correct to call it information, because some of it is information that is actually going around. And that information just serves to confuse employees.
Two people say you are supposed to go and leave.
Taimo, if you can mute your microphone. Taimo.
Because
Try more. Okay, let's proceed, Mr. Mazani.
Okay, thank you, Memor. I was talking about the issue of communication, how organizations must handle communication. That also being driven by HR. So that employees get access to timely, accurate, and consistent information. Because what is happening at the moment is that there is, I was listening to a presentation by one UNISA professor last week, was saying we have the COVID-19 pandemic. But the COVID-19 pandemic has also come with what is called COVID-19 infodemic, where employees are bombarded with information, left, right, and center, and are not able to distinguish between facts, myths, and speculations to do with COVID-19. That is a problem for our employees. So the organization is to step in and actually launch like an information hub where employees can get reliable information that they can make use of, that is based on facts, based on WHO standards, based on Ministry of Health and the Child Care standards. Right. Then along with that, or it's a different factor altogether, the issue of mental illness is a big issue with COVID-19 because of this issue of anxiety, uneasiness that employees have, the psychological trauma that has been brought up by COVID-19 needs to be managed. The problem we are having culturally at the moment is that mental health is stereotyped, and we need to actually bust those stereotypes as HR people. Mental health is associated with madness. You know, I think when someone calls you Nopenga or Uyashanya, you know, people start thinking of mental asylums like Ngopahuru, like Imbucheni, you know, so there's serious stereotyping of mental illness. But the reality of the fact is that there is a lot of this in the workplace. Research has actually determined that up to 60% of our employees experience mental health issues in one way or the other during the year, which means it's something significant we have to really take note about. And where HR comes in is to come up with policies and programs that bust these myths and stigmas about mental health, supporting employee mental health in the workplace, which is a reality as we speak. Then there is also the issue of skills. We talked about, I indicated that we are on a watershed at the moment where we are now going to change to the new way of doing things, which means that the skills of yesteryear are not going to be relevant or valid in the aftermath of COVID-19. And there is an obligation and a duty of HR people to come in and facilitate the skilling and upskilling of workers, making use of these virtual learning technologies that I think a lot of them are coming up, and you know, they are wait to be exploited for the benefit of employees in terms of skill upgrades. I think I'm going to stop there at the moment. That is my contribution. But yeah, I should be able to then deal with any questions or further discussions thereafter.
Thank you very much, Isaac. Let me go to Sam Gumisi.
Thank you, Memory, and I want to appreciate Audrey and Isaac for their analysis of the situation and how HR can come in and help businesses prosper into the future. My starting point memory would be to again revisit what we call the current crisis. I think we need to contextualize that crisis. There are two twin evils that Zimbabwean businesses are facing at the moment. One is what the other presenters have already spoken on, which is the COVID-19. I will not go into much detail on that, but I feel challenged that we need to expand and look at what we term as the current crisis in our situation, especially in Zimbabwe. I think we need to include the economic challenge that businesses are facing currently. Those challenges could be spinning off from what COVID has thrown at us or at businesses, or it could simply be talking to the economic fundamentals in our economy, where we see we have now reached the hyperinflation territory. Our inflation is going up by the day. Again, we see your black market rates, which everyone uses when you talk business. The rates are going down south. So those are creating problems. But coming back to the issue of COVID, I agree that a new normal is asserting itself post-COVID, that it will not be work as usual. We'll have to redesign our workplaces and accept that some of us will have to work from home or from other places rather than the office at the place of work where we normally or where we were used to working from. But having said that, I think we also need to appreciate that it will not be possible, especially in Zimbabwe, where most of our processes, our industries are manual driven. It will not be possible that the majority of the people will be working from home. The majority of the people will be required to go back to their old workplaces and continue working. The challenge then becomes, how do you, as HR, help the business ensuring that the health and safety of those employees is well looked after? How do you manage the issue of social distancing, where perhaps you are working in a plant which was designed to work in a certain way? So where a process requires 100 people, I'll give you the example. I belong to the tobacco industry, and we know we've got lines or process, and the line they will tell you, those in the business, that they need 105 people or 110 people. So the challenge then, the practical challenge becomes, how do you ensure that work gets done at the same time you want to respect the social distancing? How are you going to make that happen? How do you ensure that at a time where transport is so scarce, your employees will still be able to report for work on time and leave at knock-off time, the usual knock-off time, when there's no transport? That is where now interventions, HR interventions, are called in. It can be business as usual, where you say each man or each woman to themselves, we meet at the place of work. I think we need to do the very simple things: provision of transport that will respect the social distancing. But how do you manage that against escalating costs for the employer, where we are saying the environment is not conducive to business? Businesses, their margins are being eroded by the current economic challenges surrounding us. how do you get employees to work when there is no fuel around? So businesses and HR in particular, we have to package issues, solutions around those sort of problems so that our employees are still able to come to work. They are still productive. Productivity levels are not affected. And at the same time that the business continues to prosper. One of the challenges that I see in our environment, when you compare to what is happening, say, not far from us in South Africa, what is happening in the UK, in the United States of America, governments have come in to help businesses in this current challenge. In our environment, the situation is dire. You hardly see the presence of government in helping a business. So there is a challenge. The interventions coming from government are very piecemeal, if any is coming through. So those are challenges. So employers are on their own. But do we have to deal with the COVID challenges in our silos as individual employers, or we should look at the challenges that are being thrown at us by this challenge as associations, business associations? My view would be that if you just look at the challenge of, the extra expenditures, budgets that we are forced to now meet as a result of trying to comply with the guidelines around the management of COVID. I think much could be done if people could look at the manner in which, for example, our tobacco auction floors were opened this year. Employers came together as an association or as an association. I would think HR also need to think along those lines to say, in our industry, how do we then harness the resources that are around us in order to help employees in this environment by coming together? Let me, for now, leave the issue of the COVID. I think most of those issues have been covered, but I think we also need to look at our current challenges in Zimbabwe by looking at the economic landscape, the business operating environment, which is deteriorating by the day. So the question then becomes, how do we, as HR people, come and help businesses? Right now, there are serious shortages. Basic things like your maize meal, cooking oil, sugar. Those are welfare issues that HR should be involved in. And how do you help employees? It's really going back to the basics. How did we survive in 2008? So we need to revisit some of those strategies and where we can improve those interventions that we did in 2008. We need to improve on that. Memory, I think for now, I'll leave it at that. I think most of the points have been well covered by the other participants.
Thank you very much, Sam, and also thank you very much to the other presenters for those key points and highlights in terms of what HR can do to assist the business to navigate the current environment. I think if we look at it, we did get insights into the impact of COVID on the business, and in relation to how HR can assist. And I think what was coming out top was that the health of the employees that are being called to come to work, and also the issue of the economic challenges that Sam has highlighted, and the various options available to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, and also the welfare issues that are coming out as a result of the current economic challenges and with COVID-19. But I think in summary, what I'm noticing is that our situation will probably be much worse, given that I'm sure all of us are noticing that the cases are actually going up, which means that there could have been community infections actually happening while we were looking at the small numbers. So the rate of infection is unknown, and it could actually be widespread across all provinces, even those that are reporting zeros. So we have got a big challenge. Your employees are working for you, especially those that are coming to work, but going back into the community, an infected community, or they are bringing the disease from work, taking it back to the community. So the challenge, I don't think we have seen the peak of this particular disease in Zimbabwe. We are actually at the beginning for what America was on. So we have not started, because once we start seeing people dying in your own home, very close to you, that's when, like what happened with cholera before, that's when probably people will start taking some of the issues seriously. Walk into any shop, walk into any road, walk into any area where there are where there's a group of people, you see that people don't respect social distancing. People don't respect the issue of wearing masks. If you remember last time with the guy from Hong Kong, Dr. Clayton, and if you look at Hong Kong, they've got less than 100, I think, cases. And his advice was that the government of Hong Kong, from day one, they requested everyone to wear a mask, put on a mask. And they cleaned all the public places. They implemented social distancing. That's why Hong Kong is actually in a normal environment. They've never gone into proper lockdown. Actually, the economy is ticking. But I think what is missing, even in workplaces, we are customers of many businesses here. If you go into workplaces, you still social distancing is not being done. You see issues of masks. Most people are putting on their masks, but half of the nose is out or the mouth is out. So it's either of the two is out. So those are challenges that we are facing. And it's not really, it's unlikely to be what you are doing as an employer that is going to have an impact. That's why I think Sam was talking about community, the HR community getting together. It's actually imported infections that are going to hit you hard. These are imported infections from the community, from where your employees are in their own circles. As we speak now, your employees are still, most of the employees are still doing the normal visits, the normal travel that they've been doing before, regardless of the COVID. And when they go into those circles, they still have relatives visiting. So it's a much bigger problem, and might likely to be much bigger in Zimbabwe, given our economic situation. If you look in America, for example, you will notice that the situation has been dire in the Black community for various reasons. Poverty is associated with disease, and poverty and disease walk hand in hand. So those are challenges that are a reality for all of us. For now, I think I will open up the session for others to ask questions. So if you want to ask a question, either raise your hand. There's a trick there for raising your hand, or you can unmute yourself and speak. Then hopefully there won't be two people speaking at the same time. So participants, you can ask questions to our panelists, Isaac Mazani, Audrey Mlambo, and Sam Gumisi. While they're thinking, maybe let me kickstart the questions to the panelists. Yes, there are two issues that are really crucial here. One of them is that there's need to protect the employee, and also there's need to preserve jobs. But we do know that organizations are really in a tight situation in terms of cash flow. We know, if you've been looking at the numbers, most businesses have lost demand or volumes by almost about 70%, some higher, which means basically they have no business to talk about. Most of the companies are probably technically insolvent as we speak, because they can't meet their day-to-day working capital requirements for various reasons. Forex shortages, we are a net importer, which means that we are importing most of the raw materials that we need, and these are all challenges. And we also must put it in the context of the new strict measures to do with ZipIt, EcoCash, and basically transactions are being limited. Maybe if the panelists can comment on that. Any of the panelists, if you want to comment? So many controls that are coming. Poverty, business squeezed, Employees want to be paid. Employees want their rights asserted in terms of pay. How do you balance all those issues?
Let me come in there.
Yeah, Isaac first, then
Yes, I think, as you rightly point out, it's the issue of, I think it's two-pronged. On the one side, there's an issue of business continuity. And then on the other side, we have staff welfare, employee safety and welfare. There's a Shona saying, which says, that is what is happening at the moment. And in the context of that, what needs to be done is for the two parties, the business, that is the organizations and the employees, to actually engage and come up with mutual solutions to these common problems. When you look at the spirit of the Labor Act itself, go to section 25, where they talk about works councils. They say there are so many things that business can bring forward for discussion with employees. And there is a section which particularly says that the employer must strive in all consultations with employees, must strive to reach consensus when coming up to decisions, for taking the business forward. So this is the whole spirit. What I'm seeing right now in some situations that organizations, yes, fine, they are facing problems like you say, but because of that, they have actually thrown the employee to the wolves. There is no consultation, measures are just introduced, salaries are cut without consultation and so forth. There's no engagement. So there is need to build a culture based on trust, even during this difficult time. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much, Isaac. Sam, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I agree with Isaac in terms of the second part of his contribution, but I differ with him where he talks of business continuity as a separate issue from the issue of the employees. Business continuity cannot exist outside the employee. So business continuity means that you are looking at everything that makes the business. So for me, that's the starting point. Otherwise, I agree with his solution that you need transparency, you need an open culture within the organization. You need to share the burden. There is no need, Audrey alluded earlier on to the fact that some managers in the future are going to work from offices. So contracts of employment may need to be revisited to take into account that those new realities. There will be no need in the future for such managers who are entitled to 400 liters of fuel to continue getting the 400 liters of fuel when the company is struggling, when employees cannot make ends meet. So it's through communication, it's through development of this shared value system that organizations will come out of this. If we treat the company as something different from its employees and managers standing on the one side, employees on the other side, I think we'll be missing it from the word go. So business continuity means that we are in it together.
Okay, thank you. Let me take. I think the solutions are very clear. Engagement is key in all of them, regardless of which part you are leaning more towards, whether employer or employee side. I think the issue is, and the good thing is that the laws, our statutes allow you to engage your employees. And most of the time, when you engage your employees, they tend to understand. People always say no involvement, no commitment. If you involve people, they'll buy into your idea. If you don't, they'll definitely not support the idea.
And to emphasize memory,
Yes,
I
okay.
think the issue of transparency that has been spoken about is to actually say, even to the extent of sharing the business performance results, even as we go along, even projections, so that at the end of the day, we can collectively find solutions and get to a mutually beneficial arrangement in as far as compensation or any other costs are involved. So you find in most cases now people are talking about even the issues of leave. How do we manage leave in the context of people that have just been home and not working? But it's something that I think through dialogue and objectivity on both parties, where we actually look at things and look at the implications, we can then come out and have solutions that can ensure that businesses survive.
Thank you very much, Audrey. Thank you very much for that insight. Let's say there's a question from Fidelis Trangra here. Is it a trait for HR to champion for austerity measures, that is no work, no pay, in assisting business during COVID-19? This is a question. How do you respond to that, the panelists?
So I guess, okay, I can start. My view is that human capital comes into play a part of just balancing. To say, on one end, there's that, welfare element. We need to be, to have solutions that can ensure the welfare of our employees is taken care of. But at the same time, we don't want to run the business to the ground. Otherwise, there will be no organization to talk about. So to champion, I wouldn't say champion, but as business leaders, as part of EXCO, or as part of other entities of the business, I think we can collectively come up with those solutions. On the issue of championing, I'm not too sure. In terms of what meant exactly.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think memory, the principle of no work, no pay is a context. It is a legal context. It doesn't apply in all situations. The COVID-19 situation does not call for, in my view, that principle be invoked. The no work, no pay principle applies where the employee voluntarily absents themselves from work. That's where at common law it's used. It's a common law principle. It does not apply in this particular aspect because we all know how the COVID pandemic came about. It's a natural disaster that took place. The employer had no control over it, and similarly the employee had no control over it. It's a disaster. So my view to that would be that you need to communicate, you need to agree on how the pains would be shared between the employer and employee.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that question is answered. I've got another question that I want to ask you while you are waiting for others to ask their questions. One of them is, people have been touting and saying, look, this work from home is going to increase productivity and things like that. But I've been reading for the last few days latest research that shows that productivity only goes up significantly the first few days, especially when someone has got a choice to work from home. But the more they work from home, productivity starts going down. So that is a challenge for if that is true, that is a challenge for HR practitioners, because in the home environment was never meant to be an office. That's number one. So many disturbances. The study that we did, children running around, your television, relatives visiting, so many of the disturbances that we are not probably putting on the table in terms of actual productivity. We had another case the other day where someone was saying, they tried to look for their subordinate, and the subordinate was claiming to be home and doing the work, only to discover that they were now in Gweru when they're supposed to be in Harare. So all those are big challenges that we need to look at. Performance, like Audrey said at the beginning, is a big issue. If you are not going to be, if you don't have a culture of output-based kind of performance management system, you are going to suffer. Management systems in terms of leadership, we have to change somehow. Those who crave for seeing people in offices and micromanaging are definitely going to have a big challenge. Because there are some people who think that if they're not seeing faces, they are not managing. So they would want to pop into your office once in a while and see you. So these are all challenges. What is your take on the impact on productivity?
Well, Memory, I think I'm not aware of any local research, evidence that will talk to the issue of productivity going up or down. But from what you say, I think it's common knowledge that we are currently not wired for remote working. It's something that was thrust upon us by COVID-19. There's what they call evolution and then what they call revolution. So evolution is usually the good thing. But in this sense, COVID-19 just came and it forced remote working upon us when we were least prepared for it. So there's an issue of infrastructure costs that are involved. Organizations are financially strained, but they have to provide the necessary infrastructure to enable teleworking. And then the disturbances that are also associated with working from home. Schools are closed now, kids are at home, and so forth. And then the issue of power supply. Fine, at the moment it looks like power supply is a bit reasonable, but in most cases, there's no power supply, adequate power supply to enable remote working to be carried out. So it's remote working is really going to be a big issue in taking into account the effect that they say in countries like USA, which is a developed country, only not more than 40% people of the people can work from home, which means 60% have to be on site. So that number is likely to be bigger when we consider developing countries like Zimbabwe and our challenges, which developed countries are not facing. So this is a reality. Remote working is going to be there, but not so fast. Let me say not so fast.
Thank you, Isaac.
Memory, can I come in?
Yes, Audrey.
Can I come in? And I also I'm not sure if you've noticed that Morgan has been having their hand up, but what I wanted to say is, it is, in my view, it's context-based, like in terms of productivity. So you find the people whose roles, I think, they can actually thrive when they're working from home, and circumstances. So you are speaking of, people with school-going children and whatever. There are people that are in different circumstances who can even be more productive when they're working from home. And there's also need for that, I'll re-emphasize the issue of focusing on output in terms of how we focus our goals, or how line managers deal with employees. I think that will need a bit of support for us to support our line managers in terms of what are the things that they should be focusing on. And the example you give around an employee who was supposed to be at a certain place and was found elsewhere, it's unfortunate, and some of it comes through. So it's about one being disciplined to actually say, I need to be doing this and finalize or whatever. But the other one maybe speaks to the concerns, the realities on the ground. Someone is trying to care so that they can get extra monies and whatever. But at the end of the day, I think the focus should be about, if they were set to deliver something, have they done it to the right quality and within the agreed timeline? I think that's what we should then be helping our businesses to manage that. But where it is not possible, it's unfortunate that in those cases, people would have to go into the offices. But where it is possible and all the conditions are conducive, as human resources practitioners, we should then be supporting people to make sure that productivity levels go up. So to Isaac's point, with lack of research that can actually give us in terms of productivity for working from home within the Zim context, we might probably speculate. It's not certain, but we've got pockets where Yeah, but we've got pockets where, like in our organizations, where we can actually see productivity is increasing, and it's been consistently increasing. Obviously, at the start of COVID-19 lockdowns, there was a bit of people trying to settle, but thereafter you find people settling in and things moving and being more creative. And when automated solutions are brought in, even more productive productivity increases are being noted.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, before I give others an opportunity, we've got two hands up there. There is this case of this person who then went to Gweru, who prompted people to have a discussion even on Twitter, where some were saying maybe the manager is wrong in terms of trying to discipline this person, because work is no longer about location, because the work is about output. Whether I'm in Gweru or Lupane, as long as the work has been done, does that matter really? I just wanted to think about that. And also I wanted to think about this question. I would want you to answer it later on after taking the other question. There's been an argument from others saying that, you know what, I'm using my home to do your work. Let's share the rent. What's your take on that? I don't want you to answer it now. Let me give Morgan first, then Prosper an opportunity. You can go ahead, Morgan.
Right. Thanks, Mr. Mura. How are you?
Fine, how are you?
I'm right. What I see, I think to the presenters, I think it's quite insightful. There is possibly a higher need now for psychology welfare services, given that our employees, they are living in different environments. What we call home, to me, and what is home to John, those are totally different definitions. Somebody stays in one room, somebody stays in a flat, somebody has got a big yard and things like that. So when we then ask our employees to say they can work from a certain workspace or they can cope with the challenges that they're having, I think that one we may need to also have some research done around that locally. Because I think most of the researches that we're relying on are basically those researches that have been done elsewhere. Another issue that of interest for me is HR itself, ourselves as a profession. Mm-hmm. How prepared are we with these changes that are taking place to be able to assist the business at the present moment?
Thank you very much. Let me take Prosper's question as well, then maybe the panelists can then respond. Prosper?
Thanks, Memory. There are two things that I find a bit unnerving about the crisis as being presented. Maybe our presenters can help us debunk some of the things. The first thing, remember I read an article by Thandeka Madziwanyika yesterday about will there be a new normal? Mm-hmm. And I think she presented two issues as given, not as issues, not as questions or as issues based on evidence to say, yes, there will be a new normal, or no, there will be no new normal based on 1, 2, 3 so things. Okay, the first thing that she said was things will not go back to the way they were as a given. That's just a statement. No reasoning behind it, or no argument against it. Then the second thing is, if you do things the same way after lockdown, then you have not learned anything new. That also being given as a given, as a statement, not as anything debatable or something like that. Then there's the issue of looking at Zimbabwe's economy, Zimbabwe's industry, for example. If you check the examples that have been given by different authors on organizations that will be affected by the new normal in quotes, first, white collar functions, those can work from home, no problem. Then there are tech organizations, and then examples were given Facebook, Amazon, that they've already taken the idea of working from home seriously, and their employees have started working from home. But if you look at organizations like production lines, Sam, I think, gave an example of tobacco auction floors. Production lines, engineering organizations, transporters, for example, those are now under pressure from the concept of the new normal. But the pressure that they are under now is becoming more difficult because they don't know what the new normal is to them. What working from home in the instance of their organization means. And so as HR, how do we handle that? I think I want to take that as misinformation actually, or infodemic as presented by Mazani there. As HR now, what's the position on the pressures that are being created by either correct information but being misapplied or incorrect information being applied? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Prosper. Panelists, any reactions?
My view, Memory, I'm trying to respond to the last issues raised by the panelists today. My view would be that we are going into uncharted territory. These are uncharted waters. We can only learn as we go. And what will be required then is flexibility. We have to be adaptive. We have to be very quick in terms of learning and devising, coming up with the solutions that work for the solution. I mean, the situation as it evolves. Things to do with your contracts. Do we need to fix the contracts? The usual contracts that we had prior to this experience. Audrey mentioned, alluded to that issue earlier on. So I don't think we can claim here with any degree of precision, we are not prophets, to say this is what will happen in the future. But I think what is required is that we must be quick in terms of our reading the trends as they emerge and quickly adapt to those, and then ask ourselves to say, our infrastructure, our contracts, everything to do with our processes, is it fine-tuned to operate in this environment? That would be my short response.
Okay. Yes.
I'm also going to just make a small contribution as well. I agree with Sam when he says the issue of contracts also need to be looked at because they are a big issue in this respect. I was thinking of the aspect of casualization of labor, where, you know, the Labor Act is amended in 2015, now allows NECs to determine how many times a fixed term contract can be renewed before an employee may be considered permanent. And a number of NECs have actually gone about to come up with, they've made decisions in that respect, as empowered by the relevant statutes. But in that respect, and in the wake of COVID-19, are those contracts going to continue to be relevant? That's the issue. Or they need to be relooked at. The issue of permanent employment is actually likely to be a bygone in the post-COVID era. And then also responding to Prosper, he did ask a question about the issue of information overload that our employees are having, and us not being sure of what is going to happen in the future. I was reading a McKinsey report which made 2 recommendations that organizations need to do. One of them being that every organization must come up with what they call a COVID-19 crisis team. And that COVID-19 crisis team is made up of members from all the functions within that particular organization. And the responsibility of the COVID-19 crisis team is to deal with the situation as it presents itself. Sam was talking about the issue of food insecurity facing our employees, the issue of the transport crisis and so forth. Those are the here and now issues that this COVID-19 crisis team needs to be dealing with. Then there's also another group that needs to be formed that is called the COVID-19 Plan Ahead Team. You know, yes, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but if we also, you know, put in place a team of people who are going to gaze into the future and at least come up with the views and interventions of what might work or what might not work in the future. So that's one of the things that can actually be done rather than looking at the crisis as it unfolds. Let's deal with the issues now, and also let's look ahead and say, okay, point B, what is it going to be like in the future? So this McKinsey report that I was reading is a very interesting, you know, I just thought I should share with you.
Sorry, Trimo says, what if engagement at Works Council does not yield agreement in terms of issues to do with the deducting leave on those employees who are not coming to work? What are the employer's options? And I think this will be one of the last two questions that we are going to take. Did you get the question? It's also on the chat there. It's
Yeah, we got it.
okay.
Yeah, I think the Works Council, in respect of Section 25 that Isaac alluded to earlier on, it has got a list of issues for which the employer is required to consult with the employee before arriving at a decision. And consultation is precisely consultation. If you agree, so much the better. If you don't agree, tough luck, you don't. But what you would have done at the very least is that you communicated your concerns and you also listened to the other party ventilating their concerns or discomfort with whatever issue it is that you are putting on the table. So at the end of the day, a decision would have to be made because you are a business organization and businesses thrive when they make decisions. So a decision would have to be made. But my recommendation always is to say, when you make a decision, it should be a business-oriented decision which tries to carry everyone in business along with everyone. So it should never be managers versus employees. You are presenting a problem to the other party so that they become part to the solution identification to that problem. You don't just raise issues for the sake of going through the motions. But at the end of the day, hopefully, when that happens, a business focused decision will be made.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you well answered there. So we'll take our last question from Isaac Tafumani. Isaac, you can go ahead.
Well, thank you, Memory. I would like to play a devil's advocate here. Actually, I've been listening to what the presenters have said, and it was very insightful. But however, if anything is to go by what's on the ground, what I've actually seen, I really think the HR intervention, or maybe I say solution to HR in this COVID situation, I think its hands are tied. Why am I saying so? Go to a Zoom line, you see that people are not observing social distance. Go to maybe in the charter where people board private cars, you see crowded people coming from work. So my question would be then to say, are all those employees coming from workplaces where there are no HR guys? There was a presenter who talked maybe of the economic challenges that the country is currently facing. Yes, true, very true. So maybe I'm coming from a point whereby I, as an HR, I'm coming from maybe a small organization that cannot maybe provide transportation from my workers to go to Wiza, to Rua, to Norton. How then will I maybe help employees maybe not to they contract the virus, or will I maybe advise the powers that be? But if they don't listen, what will I do as an HR? So to me, yes, we may say there are solutions, but at the end of the day, to me, I see maybe depending on where the level of the HR manager or officer is, our hands at times are tied in terms of interventions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to summarize your question, you are really saying that yes, there is something that you can do within your work environment, but the employee still remains exposed. Yes, they move from home to work, isn't it?
Yes,
and
yes.
Only probably some of the companies will be able to afford to provide individual transport to transport people back from home to and from work. Yeah, I think it's an issue that we touched on. Remember where we said you have no control once the employee leaves your workstation most of the time. Yes, you can transport them home, but from there they go to church. After church, they go to a family gathering. After family gathering, outside the work environment, very little control. So that's why I was saying that what we are likely to end up with the imported infections that then end up in your workplace. Panelists, your last parting shots, we answered that question.
Well, in response to the last question, I would say, look, organizations are endowed differently with resources. There are organizations that can call resource rich. I'm not sure we have got many of them in this current situation. And then there are organizations that are resource staffed. So whatever interventions or recommendations that HR has to come up with also has to take into account the resource endowment of that particular organization. But it's not, there's no substitute to doing that. There's no substitute to, HR cannot sit back and do nothing. That's my point of view. HR can't sit back and do nothing. It has to do something, but within the context of the available resources.
Okay, thank you.
And memory, maybe to
Yes,
add on. Okay, so maybe to add on from my end to that is, I think we should then not only be restricted to just the financial muscle one has to provide transport or whatever, in the context of corporate social responsibility, where I think one of the presenters did mention the importance of each and every organization to play its part so that collectively we can fight this situation, is to say even in terms of information dissemination within our communities, within our work, within our employees. So we give them adequate information. We encourage them to share, in their communities, so that at the end of the day, people appreciate the need of the preventative measures such as social distancing and all that. So we should then not only limit our influence to just what we can do from a financial point of view, but even in terms of imparting knowledge to our communities. So we can play a part from that perspective as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Audrey. And I think we have come to the end of this particular session. Questions, I'm sure they will continue coming. We'll be here for the rest of the day. Otherwise, I would like to thank the presenters, our panelists, Isaac Mazani, Sam Mugumisi, and Audrey Mlabo. These are very senior and well-experienced individuals. And I'm sure you can also consult with them outside this particular forum. They should be able to help you either as an organization or in their individual capacity to just seek ideas. The more we share, the better is the HR community and the business in general. So that's why we are also having these sessions where we are sharing information. We learn from each other every day. The good thing about this particular session is that it's recorded. Within the next 2 days, it should be out. I'll first share the link with all the presenters. And then share on our WhatsApp groups. You can share extensively. We'll also extensively share this on our social media handles so that we can reach more people who may not have been able to attend. Because the people who had registered for this were roughly about 49. We ended up with a maximum of 34 participants. Some were dropping in and out. Currently, we are about 28. which is not a bad number. Normally, what we get is that if you get 50 registering, you're likely to get about 30 attending for various reasons. So that's the trend. I once again, to all the participants, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this particular session. And to the presenters, we can't thank you enough, Isaac, Audrey and Sam. As usual, I've called on you on several occasions, and I'm happy that you have assisted us to reach out to our community. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day and the rest of your day and also the weekend. Thank you.